Hello everyone. Today we are going to learn how to configure trunks and outbound service in Informed Voice. First, let's get one thing out of the way. Do we need a session border controller to connect to a SIP carrier when we use Informed Voice? The answer is yes. Informed Voice supports peer-to-peer functionality, which means the devices need to send RTP to each other directly. The problem we have is that the devices behind the service provider on the internet won't be able to see the devices behind the router or firewall that the customer has. And the method of port forwarding the SIP packets and the RTP packets at the router level doesn't work because we don't have a specific IP address to forward the packets to, as we might be used with other technologies. This means we will need the SBC to anchor the RTP packets and separate the sessions between the inside and the outside. Let's configure the trunks. There are two ways to do it. If we use a gateway because the customer still has its TDM trunks, we normally assign the gateway to register to Informed Voice, the same way we would do with a non-managed STIP station. So the way it works is the same as with a non-managed SIP station. The gateway tries to register to Informed Voice. Informed Voice recognizes the user agent of that register message and inserts an entry into the database with the information it received so we can manually complete the configuration. So let's go and do it in our case. We will go to a trunks tab here in Informed Voice Administrator, and as you can see, there is already an entry because the gateway already tried to register to Informed Voice. So let's open the plus sign here and let's double click in this line underneath, and we will see several tabs. The general tab is the one where we confirm the telephony area and the zone the trunk will belong to. And also we add the number of channels that this trunk will have. As in this case we have a gateway with a PRI, we will use 23 channels for that PRI. Eventually, we can add authorization parameters, a username and a password. In this case, I'm going to skip that step. We will need to assign something on the in-one routing and the out-one routing tabs. We will do it a little bit later in the example. So we will click OK. Now, let's take the example of a SIP carrier. So we will go and use this plus sign on top, and we will configure our service provider, configure our SIP trunk. So I will assume my SIP trunk is in my office in Orlando. So I will add an account for Orlando. Basically, I can put a description and I will keep the same description as the account. I will need either an IP address or a name of my SBC. I can register to the SBC or not. And as you can see, I can use IP addresses or use a name in the service provider. I can select my transport protocol, and finally, I need to define the user agent of the SBC I'm using. I'm using this NEC SIP BX500 gateway in this case. So I will click OK, and in a little bit you will see another entry in IFV. Now we are able to complete the configuration. I double clicked on this port here, and now I will use the telephony area of Orlando and the zone of Orlando because my SIP trunk is in the Orlando office. And let's say I have a SIP trunk with 10 channels. Okay, I created my two SIP trunks here. Now, if I want to see if my SIP trunks are online, I can monitor them. But look at what happened. It says that I cannot monitor the line because there is no primary address tied to it. Okay. And actually, the two of them have an issue. So, how do we overcome this? I go back and I go to my outbound routing and I will add an outside service. I will create a new number. I will name it Chicago line. And I will use the single line hand order, make sure it's set here. And I will select it. And then I will select it again and I will make it primary. This is why the error message said there is no primary address set. And actually now I will do the same with the Orlando office. I set the zone to Orlando and I will select it and make it primary. Now, if I try to monitor, you can see now it's online. And the same happens with this one. Good. We have the trunks. Now we need to assign the proper access code to use them. Remember that there is a property of each station called telephony area. The telephony area defines the location of the station in terms of the telephone numbering plan of the country. Let's take a look at this Chicago telephony area here. So we can see we have the country code, area code, and the office number of the Chicago office. We have a certain definition of different types of numbers and the format here, which are all included in this template that we selected when we created the telephony area. So we don't need to worry much about that. The same with this tab called rules, where the system defines the rule that governs the manipulation of the number before it can be sent to the actual carrier. So this defines if we strip the area code, if we add a prefix. Also, there are caller ID rules. So all that is set by the template. We don't need to worry about. But what we need to consider is this parameter here, this default outside service. Here it is set to 9 because this is the default setting when we first install our Inform Voice. But 9 is a little bit dangerous because it users can inadvertently dial 911. So we prefer to change it to 8. So let's go and change it to 8 here. So when we change that to 8, we are telling the system that when the user dials 8 plus a number, it should interpret that number as a number sent from the Chicago area. So let's go to the numbering plan to see what we have here. If we look at the numbering plan, we will see that there is an entry for the digit 9 that is labeled any outside line. We already changed that to 8 in the telephony area, so we will change it here to 8. As you can see, this entry is labeled as trunk group, no longer a single line. We will keep it that way. The easiest way to tell the system which trunks do we need to use is to add them straight here. We can add the trunk for Chicago, and we can even add the trunk for Orlando. As you can see, there is a priority. I can play with this priority. The highest priority is the one that will be used first. So I prefer to use the Chicago trunks before the Orlando trunks. So that would be a way to do it. But this way it's a little restrictive. Why? Because in our particular example, we have more than one telephony area, so we have more than one office. This setting is fixed for everybody in every office. So we would like to have more flexibility on this. So let's make a little change to reach that flexibility. Let's go back to this outside line and we will remove those two trunks here, and we will keep it blank. If we keep this entry blank, when a user dials 8, what's going to happen is that the system needs to look for the trunks in the telephony area. So we will go back to the telephony area and we will change here this number, and instead of using 9, we will use a different number. Let's say 7100. So once we do this, now we go back to the numbering plan and we create an outside service. And we will create this 7100. But now I will change it to a trunk group. My zone will still be Chicago. And now I will add my two trunks here. And I will make sure that my Chicago trunk is the first priority. So doing it that way will make the system work in the following way. The user dials 8. The system will check the telephony area the station belongs to. It realizes that the station belongs to the Chicago telephony area, 7100, and now the system will look in the numbering plan for the trunks that belong to that outbound service, 7100. Let's say all the trunks in Chicago are not available. Let's say because the gateway is down or because everybody's talking. So the system will check the next priority defined under this 7100 outbound service, and it will find the Orlando trunks. the Orlando trunks are assigned to a different telephony area, and that's important. Mm. But the system will try to use them anyways, but it will apply the rules of the Orlando telephony area for the number manipulation, stripping area codes, adding prefixes, etc. And if there are enough trunks in the Orlando SIP trunk, the call goes out. Okay, let's add the Orlando telephony area to this scheme. So we'll go back to the General tab. We will go to Orlando, and we will define the outside service for Orlando. Let's say 7200. Now I will go back to the numbering plan, and I will add an outbound service, which will be Orlando. So now it's a trunk group. It's Orlando, and the zone will be Orlando, and I will add the same two trunks. But now I want Orlando as first priority and Chicago as a second priority. So the users will attempt to use Orlando SIP trunk first, and then if none of those trunks are available, it will use the trunks in Chicago. We will need to do a last configuration for this example. In order for Inform Voice to properly manipulate the numbers when it comes to adding or stripping area codes or um, prefixes, we need to tell Inform Voice to handle the numbers in a common way, what we call normalization. We will ask Inform Voice to take the number the user dials and based on the telephony area of the user to create a full number, which we call E164 format, that has the country code, the area code, and the number. And use that full number throughout its flow. So when it gets to the trunk, this full number can be properly manipulated to get the proper output. So we will do that under the General tab. We will click and we go to the System Properties, and we will go to a tab called System Initialization Settings. As you see, is empty, but it's not quite empty. There are a lot of properties here, but as they are all set to the default value, they are not being shown here. So we will add one. We will ask for the PSTN number normalization. As you see, the default is false. So I will set it to true. Now, it will warn me that we still don't have a outside service set to Las Vegas because I didn't do it when I created originally the Las Vegas telephony area, so we won't worry much about that. So now our example is almost complete. We just need to complete the assignment for Las Vegas. Consider that Las Vegas doesn't have any trunk on its own, but I mean, we can still use Chicago's or Orlando's trunks for the Las Vegas users to dial out. Well, we completed the assignment of the trunks, but now we need to configure inbound routing, which we will use DID mapping to do so. We need to tell the system how the outbound caller ID is going to be handled for the different users. And we also have to configure a toll restriction as we like. So this will be subject of a different video. With this, I thank you and see you on the next one.